Warning: some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Hi everyone, today we will be talking about a case that took place in Singapore in 2001 where a man hired a teenager to kill his wife. So if you're interested in dark and mysterious stories, don't forget to like, share, subscribe and turn on all notification buttons to stay updated on all of our latest videos. Don't forget to turn on the closed caption function for a better viewing experience. Let's get started. In 2001, 34-year-old Anthony Le attended the funeral for her estranged wife Annie Leong. The previous day, the 30-year-old Annie died in the hospital from knife wounds she suffered a few hours before. She was stabbed multiple times outside the elevator on the 4th floor where her flat was on. She was living with her mother and their 4-year-old daughter at the time. At that point in time, Anthony and his wife were going through a rough patch and he lived apart from his daughter and wife. At the funeral, a teary Anthony even sat down with a reporter not far from her wife's body and appeared very sad, saying that he was a bad husband who gambled and had an affair. Anthony went as far as to say that he was the one who fouled up their marriage. "She was everything I was not," Anthony said. "She's the angel, I am the devil." He said that he did not care that he was a possible suspect for his wife's death. In fact, just before she was stabbed, Anthony had met Annie below her flat to sign some documents. Anthony mentioned that he forgot to bring along a pen, hence he requested for Annie to go upstairs to her flat to get a pen to sign on certain documents that he had brought. Appearing to be filled with remorse, Anthony even told the reporter, "What if I did not ask her down? What if I had brought a pen? What if I had gone out with her? 1,000 what ifs, but one reality, she's gone." But that was all an act. 2 days after that interview, Anthony was arrested at his home at around 10 p.m. 4 hours earlier, the police already had in custody the hitman. He was a 15-year-old student. Due to a gag order as he was underage, he was not named, but for the purpose of this video, let's call him John. On May 19, 2001, the pair were charged in court. John, the student, was a thin and lanky bespectacled boy, and he showed no emotions when he was accused of murder. Anthony, who was wearing a singlet at the time, was charged with abetting the murder of his wife. The offence carried the death penalty. The case captured the imagination of the country and became front-page news in no time. But before we go any further, it is important to review that Anthony has been trying for quite a long time to groom a group of teenage boys in the hopes of finding a potential killer to eventually kill his wife. Around February of 2001, through John, Anthony got to know a group of youths who hung out at a nearby McDonald's. The 4 boys whom Anthony made friends with all testified at the trial. They were 17-year-old Vigneswaran, 22-year-old Sia, 16-year-old Gavin and 19-year-old Kong. And they all said the same thing. Before Anthony started to meet them regularly, often bringing along his white Pomeranian dog, he broached the subject of murder. He asked if any one of them dared to commit murder. The youths played along, thinking it was all a joke. They even asked how much would he pay for the perfect murder. Anthony replied, $100,000. He started asking them if they could kill his wife for money or find others willing to do so. He then showed them her picture. "I found it strange that he should mention the subject of killing his wife every time we met," one of the boys told the court. "I thought he was crazy." Another one of the boys also believed that Anthony was joking, but one night, when he went to Anthony's flat, he was offered $100,000 to carry out the killing. Anthony said he would get the money from selling his flat. The boy then suggested that he hire a professional killer. Anthony asked him to look for one. For the next 2 days, he called the boy to see if he had found a hitman. The boy testified and said, "His tone sounded serious and I felt that he was not joking." He began to feel uneasy and surprised that he would be so persistent. He finally told Anthony he could not find anyone. But for Gavin and John, the matter was taken much further. Anthony made a personal appeal to Gavin and John. Gavin testified that Anthony said that he wanted to kill his wife, but if he did, he would be the top suspect. So he wanted Gavin to do the job because Gavin was more daring and more gutsy. Anthony described killing his wife as easy, just come up behind her and slit her throat. He suggested Gavin buy gloves to avoid leaving fingerprints. He should also take her wallet to make it seem like a robbery. Anthony took Gavin back to his flat, where he opened a kitchen drawer and showed him several knives which he said were most suitable for killing. In the living room, he took out a black Japanese knife and told Gavin to use it to cut a sheet of newspaper. He told me the skin of the neck was as thin as a newspaper. But Gavin could not do it, so Anthony came up with a training exercise. He wrapped the bolster with newspaper and told Gavin to slash it. The teenager said he felt confused and feared that Anthony would be able to convince him to carry out the killing. He tried calling John to warn him about Anthony, but failed to reach him. On May 16, 2 days after Annie was slashed, John told Gavin he had done a very foolish thing. John told Gavin, Anthony's wife, I did it already. We now take a deeper dive into the life of the victim, Annie Leong. So Annie was 15 years old when she met Anthony in church, who was 19 at the time. After 5 years of courtship, they married in 1995. Annie had quit a job at a bank to help Anthony set up his business, but returned to work after their child was born. Due to Anthony's life habits, she mainly worked to help pay off Anthony's debts. Annie also struggled to cope with her husband's constant cheating, as Anthony would bring his mistress to their marital home. But she could only take so much. One day she decided she couldn't take it anymore, and in October of 1999, she took their daughter and left Anthony. Despite Anthony's obvious failings as a husband, in August of 2000, 9 months before she was killed, she returned to help Anthony after he tried to commit suicide by taking sleeping pills and landed in a hospital. At the time, he was nearly bankrupt because of a failing publishing business. To Anthony, this was a sign that all would be great again. But in February, Annie started divorce proceedings, which may have pushed Anthony to plot to kill her. But before we go any further, let us look at Anthony's version of the story. Anthony had said that it started off as a stupid joke, which then escalated into a game of bluff. But he insisted that he never expected anyone to take him so seriously that they would carry out the murder of his wife. This was the story he stuck to throughout the trial. When he met the group of youths, he said he tried to be something of a mentor to them. Some of the boys then boasted about being in fights and how they would not be scared of killing someone. According to Anthony, Gavin was the first who said he would kill someone for $100,000. Gavin asked Anthony to name a target, to which he suggested his own wife, Annie. But according to Anthony, he didn't at any moment mean it. I realized now it was a bad joke, he told the court. But my wife was the only person the group knew I was in contact with. They knew we were going through a rough patch. Anthony went on to tell the judge that he had given a target, it was more a challenge of their guts and to expose their bluff. While Anthony had actual discussions with Gavin and John on his detailed plan to kill his wife, he maintained that that was all part of the bluff, a challenge of guts, which is a phrase Anthony kept repeating. According to Anthony, the plan was for John to be a lookout, because Anthony told him he lacked the guts to kill. And Anthony suggested that it was that very comment that pushed John to actually commit the murder in a bid to prove himself. I think I may have hurt his ego, but I was not aware at that moment, Anthony said. He only knew what really happened 3 days after his wife was stabbed. John went to Anthony and confessed. Anthony said he screamed upon hearing the news. He told the judge, I told him I was joking. Anthony also got John to type on his computer because he thought his home was bugged. But according to Anthony, it was because he was afraid that he would be implicated in John's case as well. Anthony believed he was partly to blame since it was his stupid joke that contributed to this sad turn of event. But that was all contradicted by John in his written confession, which we will dive into now. So John got to know Anthony when he was about 10 years of age. He used to bring his hamster down below his flat to play with it. Anthony had a dog, so they bonded through the love for animals. John was the one who introduced Anthony to his 4 friends, but at the beginning, his friends didn't like his company, but after some time they accepted him. He started telling them about his wife and even asked the group of boys if they would like to kill her. In return, he would give them $100,000. All of the boys rejected that seemingly crazy offer. Anthony told John that nothing would happen to him if he just followed the plan. He then told John that he had thought and planned this whole thing out for a very long time. Anthony threatened to kill John if he didn't follow through with the plan because John knew too much at the time. In another strange turn of event, Anthony actually mentioned to John that he was in fact a hitman who was so skillful that he had avoided arrest so far. After that, Anthony gave John some money to purchase a knife. The duo then made their way back to Anthony's place where he taught John how to murder his wife. Anthony told John that he has to practice using the knife the way Anthony trained him so that he will be able to pull off the murder when the time comes. One evening after their knife practice, Anthony wrapped the knife in newspaper and passed it to John, who then tucked the knife in his jeans. They took a bus over to Annie's place, and after alighting from the bus, the duo split up as they waited for Annie to return home. Anthony called John and told him to wait for his wife to return home. At around 10 o'clock at night, John received a call from Anthony and told him that his wife had returned home and asked John to wait for his wife on the 5th floor where her flat was on. What happened was an act of unspeakable violence. John wrote in his confession letter, "I attacked her from behind. I slashed her neck and stabbed her in the chest. After that, I ran down the stairs and walked to the bus stop where I took a cab to dispose the weapon." John would eventually dispose of the knife at a beach nearby, following which Anthony told John that he did a good job. Now that we have the gist of how the crime was committed, let's look at how the case was solved. From the start, the police had already suspected Anthony. When he was questioned, Anthony was hostile and uncooperative. Well, these aroused suspicions as normally if a man's wife had been murdered, he would have been expected to cooperate and bring the killer to justice, said the police officer in charge. However, there was very little hard evidence to press any charges. This all changed when a member of an 8-man investigation team found a piece of newspaper near the elevator landing where Annie was killed. That turned out to be the same piece of newspaper that Anthony had used to wrap the murder weapon with before handing it to John. Police officers were able to trace the rest of the newspaper from which the torn piece came from in Anthony's home. Police also retrieved word files in Anthony's computer detailing a conversation between him and John 3 days after the stabbing. Worried that the police would be listening to their conversation, Anthony actually got John to sit beside him and type on his computer in a Word document. Anthony deleted the text, but forensic experts were able to access them. Forensic experts were able to piece together damning sentences that read, "Payment might have to wait. Act shocked that the woman is my wife. Why you threw the knife?" And now let's move on to the verdict. On December 6, 2001, Anthony was sentenced to hang for abetting the murder of his wife, Annie. John was sentenced to be detained indefinitely at the president's discretion as he was still a minor. Anthony was hanged 6 a.m. on December 13, 2002. Until his death, Anthony never admitted his crime, nor did he show any signs of remorse. Instead, he maintained a cool smile throughout the trial. As for John, he was filled with sadness and remorse for his crime. He even wrote on his confession letter, "How I wish that I had never known Anthony. I have let my parents down and all those around me. I do not know how people would think of me. I feel very lost and confused." Wanting to turn over a new leaf, John found hope and matured during his time in prison, even studying for a degree while serving time. Due to the president's pardon, John was eventually released on November 2nd, 2018 after spending 17 years behind bars. Anyway guys, that's it for today. Drop a comment down below on what you think of this video. If you have other stories you wish for me to cover, leave a comment and a link for me to look deeper into it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our latest videos. I'll see you in our next Campfire Stories. Thank you for